I'm sure at least one or two of you followers out there have looked at my site and thought, how does an RPG fanatic review Vita games for over 2 years and never touch a single Atelier title? There are 4 Atelier games on the Vita, surely he's played at least one of them. And the answer is yes, I have. I played about 3/4 of Atelier Ayesha Plus on the Vita, and I didn't finish it because I was really pushed away by the time management system. I hated constantly being told, you're running out of time, you only have 2 weeks to do this, you only have a month to do this. I like the overall game, a little iffy on the story and the character behind Totri, but I really didn't like the time management system. It took until last week, when I received a payment for my full screen partnership with my YouTube channel, that I decided to give the series another try. So, thanks to full screen and thanks to last week's PSN sales, here is my official video review of Atelier Ayesha Plus, the Alchemist of Dusk. The plot lines of the Atelier games are best known for being very casual and lighthearted. Unlike other RPGs like Final Fantasy, Atelier doesn't have any sort of world-threatening catastrophe plotline to it. Instead, you have a much more personal story around the main character's life. This game follows a young apothecary named Ayesha, who works in a small workshop near some ruins, brewing up herbs that she collects into medicine that she shares with the nearby towns. One day when she's exploring the ruins, she finds flowers with an unearthly glow, and an apparition of her long-lost sister appears before her. Her sister had been gathering herbs at the ruins sometime before the game started, and was what is called spirited away and was presumed dead. Now knowing that her sister is alive and well, Ayesha embarks on a journey across the world to investigate and research these glowing flowers, as well as locating and rescuing her sister. As a genre, Atelier is kind of in a field of its own. It's part turn-based RPG, but part item creation game. Because the series has a smaller focus on combat, it's not really one or the other, it's just kind of its own thing. One thing I will say that it is an enhanced port of the PS3 title of the same name. The main differences being there are 2 extra boss fights and an extra gameplay system in Atelier Ayesha Plus, which is the memory system that allows you to use memory points to unlock story events that increase your stats. This was first introduced in the sequel to Atelier Ayesha, which is actually due out on the Vita later this month. One thing I think I should mention is the business model of the series. Every time I bring up the subject of the series, a friend of mine asks me if the Atelier is just a milked rehash series where every game is the same gameplay over and over but with new story. The answer to that is yes and no. I would directly compare it to the Hyperdimension Neptunia Rebirth games. The Atelier series does get a lot of releases, and the base gameplay is very similar, with exploration, alchemy, combat, the list goes on. But in every new release, there are a bunch of new features added, so it's not exactly like the same thing over and over and over again. The only difference between these comparisons is that the Neptunia Rebirth games all use the same environment resources, and the Atelier games do not. Progressing through the game has you completing various objectives. Objectives could progress the story forward, or they could be side missions that will increase your stats on a permanent basis. These objectives could be exploring a new dungeon, discovering a new dungeon, delivering packages, doing something in the shop like partaking at a festival. The list goes on, it's really varied. Exploration in dungeon is basically running around on the point-to-point world map and going into a dungeon, and then exploring the dungeon by fighting monsters there and collecting ingredients from resource points. This is important because you have to do both of these to complete many objectives that actually push the story forward. Fighting enemies is pretty standard for RPGs. You have turn-based battles against enemy parties. When the battle ends, you have the standard get experience and level up, as well as getting a little money and getting some item drops. As I said before, it's pretty standard combat system for RPGs. The main system in the game is item creation, otherwise known as alchemy. When you're at your workshop or one of your various workshops around the world, you can combine items into different items. This is used to increase your alchemy level, which in turn lets you increase the amount of items that you can make. You can also increase the items you can make by buying and reading alchemy books that are basically recipe books that add to all of the possible items you can make if you gather materials. The big thing about alchemy in this series is items that you can use in battle. In every Atelier game, the weakest character in the game is the main character. So you have to rely on alchemy to create items that you can use to take into battle with you. Now, getting past all of these other gameplay systems, let's talk about the time management system, the one thing in the Atelier series that a lot of RPG fans do not like at all. Across the entire game, you have 3 in-game years to do the entire game and find Ayesha's sister. Time is used up by doing pretty much anything you can think of. Running across the world map makes days go by, fighting battles makes time pass, gathering ingredients at harvest points makes time pass, performing side quests makes time pass. Pretty much anything and everything you do makes time pass, so you kind of have to manage your time. The good thing about this in Atelier Ayesha Plus is that the time management system is a lot more lax than previous games. If you follow a guide, you can complete the game in about half of those 3 years. So there's a huge amount of time for running around on your own, making things go at your own pace, as well as room for error for figuring out what you want to do. As far as length is concerned, I would put a single run, or at least your first run through the game, at about 25 to 30 hours, assuming you don't waste the 3 years and get the bad ending by not getting to your sister in time. There is also the option of New Game Plus, but I will say this Atelier's New Game Plus is probably my least favorite New Game Plus in any RPG. When you carry stuff over, all that carries over is the equipment you have on your characters. Your levels don't carry over, your money doesn't, your ingredient items don't. Pretty much nothing but equipment gets carried over, so it's essentially like starting a new game. When you go into presentation, all of the Atelier games on the Vita look gorgeous. There isn't all that much downgrading as far as the graphics are concerned between the PS3 and the PS Vita versions. There's a ton of detail, all of the shadows are accurate, there are interactive backgrounds, the music is just as beautiful as in the main console game. All in all, Atelier are probably some of the most prettiest handheld RPGs ever made. This doesn't come without a price though. Atelier Ayesha Plus has a clear struggle when it's running on the Vita. A lot of areas do really well, and you can definitely tell it's got a nice smooth frame rate to it, but some areas and dungeons have signs of a struggle through slowdown and lag. I'm not talking about it jumping down to single digits, but it's pretty obvious that as the Atelier games keep evolving, the Vita is having a hard time keeping up with it. The next thing I'll say is the voice work. Atelier games have English audio as well as Japanese audio, but the odd thing is that there's a lot more Japanese audio than English audio. If you switch the language over to Japanese, pretty much every scene in the game is voiced. If you switch back to the English dub, only about half of the game is voiced. I've done a bit of research on this, and apparently it was the same way in the PS3 release of this game. Atelier Ayesha Plus is far less than the max size for a Vita game, so it makes you wonder why the developers would only dub about half of the game when the Japanese dub covers the entire game. Atelier Ayesha Plus is the latest PS Vita Plus or definitive version of an Atelier game. It definitely has an issue with slowdown in a few areas and the confusing lack of dub on the English side. However, if you're new to the series, the lax time restrictions and the extra features built in make this a great place to start your journey into the world of Atelier. Reviews to go rates Atelier Ayesha Plus an 8 out of 10. If you have any further questions or comments, feel free to leave them below or head to my site at www.reviewstogo.com.